Hi everyone, this is Lada from astrolada.com, and today I'm here with Levi, Vedic Astrologer, who is gonna help us dive deep, or what is the expression? Dive deep into Jamini Astrology today. Hi Levi.
Hey Lada, how are you?
Thank you so much for being here. And we need to, prepare people that this is going to be a very extensive and even difficult lesson. So they have to prepare their pen and paper and their charts to get ready and to see basically how this technique is being implemented. We're going to talk about how to find marriage and the marriage sign in the birth chart according to Gemini astrology. Can you tell us a few words about Jamini astrology? Why Jamini astrology is so correct? This is ancient Sanskrit Vedic astrology, which is very different than anything you've studied, guys. Jamini astrology uses very different aspects, very different techniques, and you see how this is like a totally alien astrology now. And Levi wants to show you a few simple techniques, which will focus on marriage in the chart. And basically, astrologers know Gemini astrology as the ancient art, and it's basically even coded. It was written in code, so it had to be decoded, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And its secrets are only starting to come out now, since people started translating it in the last 20 years. Our teacher, Ernst Wilhelm, has been translating the coded verses. And it's an astrology which shows the major themes in life. Are you gonna get married? Are you gonna get divorced? Are you gonna have children? What you're gonna work? It's not about timing, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about Jamie?
Yes, so I think Gemini, lays out the framework of things, right? So it's going to tell you what kind of spouse you will have. Will you have a spouse? Will you get married, right? It's very concrete. It's the aspects are on or off. This is the idea. And so in Parashara astrology, it's more about the ups and downs. For example, if you will have a spouse, if you will get married, Parashara will tell you how the marriage will evolve, right? In certain dashas.
How are you gonna feel?
How you're gonna feel about it. So yes, Gemini astrology is in a way, it's very simple. Things are on or off. And, I just started taking Ernst lessons and found it extremely valuable and accurate information. But there's a lot of things to consider.
Science, do you see that it works powerfully?
Yes, definitely. I always use Gemini astrology when analyzing a horoscope. And it's fun too, Gemini gives like all these combinations, like will you be an alchemist, a conjurer? It gives spiritual advice. It's fascinating. And I think if you can use it with the whole Parashara system, or even your Western astrology practice, all the things you learned, it's gonna be a lot of fun. And yeah, things seem to get more accurate in my experience. So I think it needs to call you also. For me, it's some people are very interested in nakshatras, and I also think it's very interesting, and I feel that I have to spend at least another 5 years at the Gemini astrology. So that's I just love it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I use Gemini for finding career, and now we're going to talk about marriage, though. How to see the marriage through Gemini astrology. And guys, it might sound a bit complicated, but once you learn the technique, it's super simple. You can see it in less than 20 seconds. But we just have to explain the rules of it.
Yeah, luckily Ernst did all the work for us. We're just kind of applying the techniques. It's wonderful because yes. Mm-hmm.
And many people in that use Gemini use it wrongly, because for them the Upapada they think is the 12th house, isn't it?
Some people use it to calculate the Upapada from the 12th house, some people from the 2nd house. And I think Ernst also explains it that, you know, he can understand that people calculate it from the 2nd house, but less from the 12th. But we are going to calculate the Upapada from the 10th house, right?
And that's according to the latest translations and decoding of the they like the verses of Jamini. They're coded. They're numerically coded. They're like a conundrum. You have to be. They don't tell you directly do this and this. They're with coded messages, and Ernst's been decoding them for 20 years. And what we come out are the following techniques that tell you the secrets and the gist of your life. Marriage, no marriage. Children, no children. You know, are you gonna be a poet? Are you gonna be a writer? Or are you gonna be a snake charmer? But anyway, let's get started, because that's a lot of information that we have to give to people.
Yes, it is. Yes. Now we're going to have to explain a couple of things here. We're going to have to explain Rashi aspects, what Rashi aspects are, because, you know, in Western astrology we use Tajika-based aspects like trines and squares, etc. And you know, we're not going to use those, nor are we going to use planetary aspects, which are based on degrees, right?
Yeah.
So excuse me?
I'll write them behind me so people can see them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And I'll leave them to stay behind. Done.
Sure. So the idea is that movable signs aspect fixed signs, except the fixed sign next to it. Fixed signs aspect movable signs, except the movable sign next to it. And the dual signs aspect each other.
Okay. So it means that I'll write them like that. Gemini.
So Rashi means sign, right? And so it's the signs that, yeah, it's the signs that aspect each other, right? So the planets in the signs are going to determine the quality of the sign, but it is the signs that aspect each other, right?
So those 4 signs all aspect each other. So if you have something in Virgo, it affects anything in Sagittarius, Pisces, or Gemini. They always, any planets in those are considered to be in energetical connection. They can make things together. If you see any planets in any of those 4 signs, they are together.
Exactly.
Second one.
Second one is, for example, Aries is going to aspect. Aries is a movable sign, right? So Aries will aspect the fixed signs of Aquarius.
Aspect, dual, movable.
Movable, or yes, cardinal.
Cardinal. Fixed.
Movable, it's cardinal, yeah.
Except the one next to them. So Aries can aspect Taurus, for example, because Taurus is next to Aries.
Yes, it can't aspect. So Aries will aspect Aquarius, Scorpio, and Leo. It's all fixed signs except the fixed sign next to it, which is Taurus, right?
Yes, and cardinal aspect fixed.
Yeah, it's both ways, right?
Guys, you need to know some astrology in order to follow here. At least the modalities of signs, cardinal, fixed. But say, yeah, you're Leo, say your moon is in Leo and you want to see if it's aspected by something with those Rashi aspects. It can only be aspected by Capricorn, by Aries, by Libra, but not by Cancer, because Leo is next to Cancer.
Yes. So it's on or off. It's simple. It's very simple. Okay.
Here.
So that we need to know. So we need to know Rashi aspects.
Is it showing backwards?
Excuse me?
Are the letters showing backwards?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, now also what we also need to learn is how to calculate the pada, which is, you know, a very important thing in Jamini. So the pada means foot, right?
Yes, tell us what pada is.
We're going to have to learn some new stuff, but we're going to some new techniques here. So pada is means foot. So Pisces represents the feet, right? So Pisces sign has to do with completions, right? So the pada is a kind of an end result of what a house represents, right? So we're gonna, if we calculate the pada for the first house, then we're going to calculate it from the lagna, right? From the first house. For example, if you have a Sagittarius lagna ascendant, right, then we're going to look at where the lagna lord or where the ascendant lord goes to, what sign it goes to, right, from the lagna. And then from that sign, we're going to count the same amount of places, all right? We're going to count the same number of places, including the sign. So, for example, if you have a Sagittarius ascendant and Jupiter is in the second house, there in the second sign of Capricorn, then we see that from the lagna, from the ascendant, Jupiter is 2 places away. So including
from the ascendant, the Lord of the ascendant falls in the second. So 1, 2, 2.
Yes, and that's from that sign, from Jupiter's sign, which is Capricorn, you're gonna count 2 signs. So that's gonna be Aquarius, right?
1, 2.
Including Jupiter, yes, including Capricorn. So the pada for the first house is Aquarius.
Okay, so the food, the completion, and the results of your worldly, of your incarnation in this lifetime becomes Aquarius, if it's like that, Or
yes.
Say, what if Sagittarius, what if the Lord of the Ascendant is here, for example, in the 8th sign from the Ascendant? We have to count the signs. Again, we count signs. We don't count houses.
So if Jupiter, for example, if you have a Sagittarius ascendant and Jupiter is in Cancer, then the pada becomes.
We have to count 8 signs because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. From the ascendant, we have to count the same, starting from the same sign where Jupiter is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, falls here.
Yes, falls in Aquarius again, right?
So the food becomes Aquarius.
It's where your feet land, right? So it's going to point, it's going to give you some insight in how things will evolve and play out. It's kind of an end result.
So basically, if you happen to have, say, in Sagittarius here in the ascendant planet like Venus, you might start with the arts, but if the foot of the ascendant, say, falls here with the planet Saturn, you might end up with a career that is more Saturnian again, the final results of your life. Something like that?
Well, it has to do, yes, it's going to have to do with first house affairs. So it's the end result concerning that specific area, right? We're calculating the pada here for the first house, which is the most important pada. And in fact, the lagna pada, and also sometimes referred to as the Aruda lagna, Aruda pada, which is, means mirror, is used for, especially for determining career, I find, and worldly affairs, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Success. That's the word. Like we're going to use the lagna pada.
Yeah. The overall success in your life. So the foot, and you can calculate the foot of every house. You can calculate the foot of the second house by looking at the Lord of the second house, counting how many signs it's to it, and then counting the same amount of signs from that planet and finding where it falls in. So you can have what is the results of the food of the second house, what are the results of your finances, what are the results of the 10th house, what are the results of your social status, So this is something, the final results, basically.
Yes, now we have to also say that there's a couple of exceptions.
Yes.
We need to take into consideration. Now, there's some Gemini astrologers that don't use these exceptions, and there's some who do. Now, we are going to use those exceptions, right?
Yeah.
Now, the first exception is when the lagna lord or the ascendant lord is in the first house or the 7th house, right? Then the pada goes into the 10th house from the sign that you're looking the pada for. So, for example, I'll give an example. Yeah. Yeah, please go.
If the Lord is in the 7th so the opposite sign, say Jupiter is here, from, then it's gonna go.
So if Jupiter is in, so we're talking about Sagittarius, right? If Jupiter is in Sagittarius or it's in Gemini, then it's gonna go, the pada goes to the 10th house, which is a Virgo sign, right?
You have to have the sign either, the planet that rules the pada either in the 1st or in the 7th, you put it up there. You put it in the 10th from
the place that you're looking the pada for, which is in this case the 1st and or you know it's or the 7th place there, right?
So when that a few times to get it, you know.
Yeah, it's people will probably have to review this, but it's worthwhile investigating. It's the technique just works really well, so bear with us.
So if it's 1st or 7th, so if it's in the same sign or opposite, goes to 10th.
Yeah, it goes to the 10th house from the sign that you're looking the pada for, right? In this case, we're looking for the
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 10. So it will come here. This will be the foot of your.
Yes, let's stick with the Sagittarius ascendant there, right? So if it's in Sagittarius or in Gemini, in the 1st or 7th, and it goes to the 10th house, which in this case is Virgo. Okay, then the second exception is when the Lagna Lord is in the 4th or the 10th house, then the pada goes to the 4th house from the sign that you're looking the pada for. So if in this case Sagittarius ascendant Jupiter falls in Pisces or in Virgo, then the pada goes to Pisces.
Yeah, so stays there. So if you have Cancer ascendant and the moon is, say, here in Aries, the Lord of Cancer, you'd have to, the pattern of the moon will be here.
It'll be in Libra.
Yeah, it will be in Libra. So the foot of your ascendant, or you know, becomes Libra. Okay.
Okay, so that's important.
Go a few times, try it. This is the 2 exceptions. If they fall either in the 1st or the 7th, they go in the 10th sign from the sign we're counting. Or if they fall in the 10th and the 4th from the sign, they always go, the pada becomes the 4th sign itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, the reason, so we know how to calculate the pada. So the Upa pada now, so the Upa pada is the pada of the 10th house, right? In fact, it is the pada of the 10th house cusp. Now, Upa means secondary, right? And it means, so it is of secondary importance. So the Lagna pada is the first pada. That's the most important one. And that's, you know, where we examine, you know, success and career from that pada, right? And it works just really amazingly well. Now, Upa pada is of secondary importance, so it's a secondary pada. And so we're going to use, for this technique, we're going to calculate the pada for the 10th house cusp.
Well, in Western astrology as well, the first most important house is the 1st house, and the second most important house is the 10th house. So it's like a secondary start of the chart, the 10th house, because it shows your social status, your achievements. It's like a, you know.
Yes, and it has to do with your responsibilities, your worldly responsibilities, and your, you know, your obligations and your occupation, right? So it has to do with your karmas, your actions, because in Vedic astrology it's called the karma bhava, right? Yeah. So, and when you get married, marriage sets the tone for your actions, right? It will determine for a large the way you will, you know, act in the world. So it makes sense.
That's why the marriage is determined from the 10th house in Jamini astrology, because it's your social status and it determines your karma and your actions in the world.
Yes, you become more responsible, and so the, you know, marriage is attached to the 10th house in that sense, and so in that, you know, that's the thought here, is that you know, that's the reason why we calculate the Upa pada, which has to do with marriage, and is marriage in the cards, yes or no, from the 10th house cusp. So we need to explain this also, that we're not going to calculate it from the 10th house. Now the reason is that you know, in the first sign, right, in the first house, we have the first cusp, right? It's where the sun is rising, right?
Yeah.
The seventh cusp is, you know, 180 degrees opposite from that, okay? Now, the 10th cusp is the cusp that when you fell out of the lap of your mother and you looked straight up, right?
Yeah.
Straight up, that's the 10th house cusp. That is, you know, the nuance here is that, see, the 10th house cusp is exactly 90 degrees away from the first and the seventh, right? But that's in Earth space. But that doesn't mean
the
that...
equator, yeah.
Excuse me?
You're close to the equator.
Exactly, but it's not necessarily zodiacal space because the Earth is tilted on her axis, right?
Yes.
And that's why the 10th house cusp, for example, can fall in the 9th house together with the 9th cusp, for example. I mean, that's the explanation.
Or it can be here. You just, if you're following the birth chart calculator that they have at Astrolada, just find the number 10, that sign. This will be the start, the 10th house cusp. Whatever the number 10 is, this is the midheaven, the start of the 10th house cusp for you. It's not necessary that it's exactly here. It's usually in one of those 3 signs on top of the chart.
Yes, so there's a difference between Earth space and you know, zodiacal space. Now, so we're going to calculate it from the 10th house cusp. Now, you see, it's also interesting that women tend to get married often in the dasha of the 10th lord or planets in the 10th house. That's kind of interesting to know, right? So, I mean, that adds up, that, you know, fortifies the idea here that, you know, calculating the Upapada from the 10th house cusp is, you know, not a bad idea.
And it's true, your status changes, your social status changes, which is the 10th house cusp. Absolutely. When you get married. Okay. So we're going to calculate the pada from the 10th house cusp to find the result of your marriage. To find the pada of your 10th house, which is called Upapada.
Upapada.
Upapada means the foot of the 10th house, the final result of the 10th house, which is connected to marriage.
Yes, so we're going to apply this technique. I'm getting this here suddenly.
Sorry?
I'm getting this. I hear my voice twice.
Do you? I hear you well.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
If you want to get earplugs,
I don't know.
or ear. What was
it'll be fine. It's okay. So we're gonna use this, you know, technique of calculating the pada for the 10th house. So look at where the 10th cusp lord goes to in the horoscope, and then from that place you count the same amount of places, the same number.
So your 10th house cusp is here, and you see that you have here Libra. So we need to find the lord of Libra, which is Venus. And say Venus is here. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 signs. So we need to count the same 8 signs from Venus to find the foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is it that?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that will be Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. So this will be your Upapada, the foot of your 10th house cusp.
Yes, exactly. So maybe you can.
Yeah, give example with the, if it's opposite, say, if Venus is here in the opposite sign, then we have to use that exception rule that you gave us. So if Venus is in Aries here in the opposite sign from its lord, in order for us to find the foot of this 10th house cusp, if it's in the opposite, it goes always in the 10th, yeah?
Exactly.
So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10th sign from the house cusp. We're looking at 1, 2, 3. That would be Cancer. Something like that.
Exactly. That's how you calculate the Upapada. right? And so that is going to be the starting point to for this technique. Okay.
So that would be the Upapada. The most difficult part of this technique is learning how to calculate it. The rest is super easy.
Yes, and if you do it, you know, for a couple of padas, it's just easy. You know, it's very simple.
Okay.
You just have to practice a little bit. You know, practice on your own chart always works, right?
Yeah.
And it's worthwhile.
I just want to give a last example. Say your 10th house cusp is here, and you see that Virgo is here. You need to find Mercury that rules Virgo. Say Mercury is here. So we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So Mercury is in the 10th sign from the 10th house cusp.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's in the 10th, we have to drag it back on the 4th, the opposite. 1, 2, 3, 4, here.
Yes,
So
that's
here. And that would be Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, basically. So your marriage house becomes Sagittarius.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we gave a few examples, guys. If you're finding it difficult, go back, rewind. There are softwares that calculate the Upapada, but most of them calculate it wrong. They count it, they take 12 houses to calculate the Upapada, not just the correct one. The correct one is the 10th house cusp, so learn to do it. If you have Kala software, it calculates it for you correctly. And if not, you know, just do it by hand. So that's what we're looking for, the Upapada, the fruit of the 10th house cusp. That's the result of your social status, of your career. That will be the sign of your marriage.
That will be an important place to look at. So now, for this technique, we're going to use the natal chart, you know, and also the Saptamsha chart. In Jamini, Jamini uses the Saptamsha chart for relationship affairs and marriage, etc., instead of the Navamsha, the D9 chart.
7-divisional chart. Many people do not have software, so I'll just be showing on the birth chart how it looks.
Yes, and can they find it at your calculator?
No, I don't have divisional. Ernst has a light of Vedic at his birth chart calculator.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He doesn't use the circular though. He uses the Indian type of chart, so people have to be familiar with them.
Right.
The north or south way. I'll be showing on the circular one, guys. But it's enough to learn how to look at that from your birth chart as well. It's very complicated.
Yes, start there, and but we can't stop there for this technique. But it's good to learn a technique anyhow, right? And learn how to play with the Rashi aspects and the Pada, etc. But I'll be explaining it for people who do have it, and for people who don't, you know, it'll be interesting, and maybe later on they will find, you know, the interest to look at the D7 chart or D60, whatever, you know. Okay, so now the first thing we need to examine is that when the Upapada falls in a malefic sign, that we need to first check. So malefic signs are the sign of Scorpio and Aries, right? Mars is a malefic. Mars rules those signs. Okay.
Aries. I suppose the Saturn ruled signs as well.
Okay. Then also Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn.
They're harsh signs, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then if the moon is waning, that's also a malefic sign. When it's waxing, it's a benefic sign.
So and then also the moon was growing when you were born, Cancer becomes a benefic sign, good sign, easy sign. If the moon was diminishing, basically becoming smaller when you were born, Cancer becomes malefic sign.
Becomes a malefic sign, exactly. Now, if Mercury is with an embodied malefic, that is not the sun, right? So when Mercury is with Saturn or Mars, it becomes also malefic. So then, you know, Virgo sign is gonna be a malefic sign, right?
Yeah, like in my chart, I have Mercury in the same sign with Mars. So for me, Virgo and Gemini, the signs ruled by Mercury, become malefic signs.
Yes, but they're not going to be that malefic than the other malefics like Mars and Saturn, right? But just keep it into consideration. Like when there's mixed influences, etc. We will talk about this. Just keep it into consideration that when it's with an embodied malefic, that is not, you know, the Sun or Rahu and Ketu. Well, Rahu and Ketu aren't embodied planets.
Saturn and Mars, basically. If Mercury is in the same sign with Saturn and Mars.
Yes. Also, Gemini is an exception here because Gemini has a special rule concerning a Gemini sign. So just look at it for Virgo, only for Virgo.
Okay, so these Scorpio, Aries, Capricorn, and Aquarius are always malefic because Saturn and Mars are functioning, you know, embodied malefics. The Cancer sign in your horoscope might be malefic or benefic. And Virgo, depending on the state of its Lord, Mercury can be malefic or benefic. Okay.
Yes, and the Sun is not considered a malefic. The Leo sign is not considered a malefic here. Okay, and this because the Sun in Gemini is not really considered a malefic. It is a separating factor, but it is a noble separating factor. So Sun is not, excuse me?
For higher purpose, it separates you for higher purpose.
Exactly, and so so Sun is not really a malefic here. So when the Upapada falls in Leo sign, or the Sun falls in the Upapada, in the sign where the Upapada is, then that is not considered malefic.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Now, so that is one consideration. So the Upapada in a malefic sign. Then also look at if there's a malefic in the Upapada sign.
And the malefic planets would be Saturn and Mars. What was it? Saturn, Mars, Rahu, and Ketu?
Rahu, Ketu too, yes, and waning moon.
Rahu, Ketu, Saturn, Mars, and waning moon. So that's not so strong though, the waning moon. It's like the least malefic.
It's the least malefic, but it could make the difference in some cases. So keep it into consideration.
So those planets, Rahu, Ketu, Saturn, Mars, and waning moon, if you're born during a waning moon, if they happen to fall in the same sign where the Upapada is, it's malefic influence. We'll tell you what it means after that.
Also, when Mercury is, you know, with those, when Mercury becomes a malefic, right?
If Mercury is with Saturn or Mars, also becomes malefic.
Yes. Okay, so that is the second consideration here. And then when there's a debilitated planet, even when it's a benefic in the Upapada sign, is the third thing.
So say Jupiter in Capricorn would be malefic and Venus in Virgo would be malefic. These are the two benefics, but in debilitation. Yeah?
Yes, that's debilitated planets are never a good.
Any debilitated planet. Debilitated means it's in its fall. Like the Sun in Libra, Venus in Virgo, Mars in Cancer. It's already malefic, but it's in Cancer. It's even more. Saturn in Aries. But mostly, like if you see Jupiter or Venus, which are considered benefics, and they happen to be in Capricorn for Jupiter or Virgo, for Venus, it's considered a difficult influence.
Yes. So these three conditions, Jamini says, one will be an ascetic, the wife will die. Sometimes it can be very dramatic about it, or there could be divorce. So, you know,
and most people won't have any planet in the Upapada. And they don't have a planet, they just look at the sign, yeah?
yes, but so this is the thing here to consider. It's only when there is no benefic influence to the things we just discussed through Rashi aspect, then only that rule applies.
So you have only malefic influence on the Upapada. Basically,
Right.
either one of those planets here, waning moon, Rahu, Ketu, Saturn, Mars, or debilitated Jupiter or debilitated Venus with no positive sign aspect, the Rashi aspect there.
Yeah, so when the Upapada is in a malefic sign and there's absolutely no benefic aspect to it, or there's a malefic in the Upapada sign and there's absolutely no benefic aspect to it, or a debilitated planet, even if it's a benefic and there's no you know, gentle influence to it, then, you know, there is you know, the tendency or the, you know, the fact it could play out that, you know, things end up like this, like becoming an ascetic, or the wife will die, or divorce. So this means, you know, marriage could be afflicted, right?
I have that. No, basically Virgo is my Upapada. It has absolutely no aspects, but Mercury is with Mars, so it makes Virgo malefic sign.
Yes, and also we really need to consider this in the Saptamsha chart and the D60 chart also, because that is going to make all the difference. You know, there's many Rashi charts or natal charts that have these things going on, but a lot of people get married, so we have to look a little further.
Okay,
But,
so an example, say the 10th house cusp here is in Aquarius. So you find Saturn, say Saturn is here. So you calculate the Upapada 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you have to count 12 from Saturn to find the Upapada 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The Upapada comes here. And that is the sign of Sagittarius. So we have to see if any of those, and say we have Ketu here that falls in Sagittarius with Upapada, malefic influence. Sagittarius is a benefic sign, but we have a malefic planet. What happens?
Then we're going to have to see whether that sign receives benefic aspects. And that could modify things.
Rashi aspects, Sagittarius is aspected by anything in Gemini, anything in Pisces, or anything in Virgo.
Yeah.
And say we have Venus here in Virgo. Can it save us? Because Venus aspects the Upapada.
Well, it's debilitated there, so no, it's not going to do us any good.
But if Venus is here in Pisces, it aspects the Upapada. We have a malefic here, but a benefic aspects it with the Rashi aspect. Remember the Rashi aspects, how they aspect each other.
Oh yes, and then things can change. And if Jupiter is aspecting, for example, you know, it's always the benefics are the saving grace in this. You know,
if Jupiter is here in Gemini, it's also aspecting Upapada. And so we have two benefic aspecting saving us. What if the Sun aspects? Does it save?
No problem. It doesn't. It's not considered a malefic.
Neither benefic.
No, it's no problem. Jamini doesn't make a problem.
What if instead we have here Saturn, and then, so Saturn aspects also the Upapada, but also Venus does. So we have two malefic influences, Ketu and Saturn, but one benefic.
Yes. Now, if there's mixed influences, then we can look at the Upapada Lord and the dignity, for example, or we can look at the strength of the planets, right? So Saturn here is it's in Venus sign, so Venus is in Pisces. Venus is going to be very strong. Now, again, we're going to look at it to really determine it. We're going to look at other Varga charts, divisional charts too, right? And then we're going to come to our conclusion. But when there's mixed influences,
very mixed influences, yeah, they won't be just bad or just good influences. And the ones that just have good, they're very easy. Great marriage will happen, you know. It will happen.
But if there's mixed influences, look at the dignity of the Upapada Lord. So in this case, that would be Jupiter, right?
Say Jupiter is here in Cancer. It will be exalted.
Yes, you see, then this will change the situation also.
That's great. But if Jupiter falls in Capricorn,
then that's not really gonna help much.
Because Jupiter doesn't have good dignity, doesn't have much strength to help. It's the sign that it rules, which happens to be your marriage Upapada.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think both heads are spinning, but
it is a lot to consider, but it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they have to watch it over and over, but this, once you learn it, is super simple and super fast to see.
Yes. That's the great thing about Jamini. First, it makes your head spin, and then once you get it, you go like, wow, this is so simple.
Yeah, it's kindergarten astrology, I call it, but it's the foundation of astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And have you noticed, like, say someone has in the Upapada, say this is the Upapada, and we have a Jupiter there, so a great planet in its own sign, so great dignity. But we have a negative influence as well from, say, Saturn here, aspecting. Is that called mixed influence again?
No, when there's a benefic, the benefic in the sign is much more powerful than the aspect. Okay.
So aspects are more secondary.
Or more secondary.
A malefic. They can save a malefic from banning marriage or killing your wife or whatever, or spouse, or bringing divorce. But basically, the planet inside the Pada is the most powerful one.
Yes, when there's benefics in the Pada, then the aspects are not going to overrule that. But if there's malefics in the Upapada, the benefics are going to overrule that. They're going to be the saving grace. They could be, right?
It's kind of odds are a little bit more on our side.
Yes, I think so. Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of people get married, right?
Sorry?
A lot of people get married.
Yes,
so
true. Yeah.
It has to be like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So also when the Upapada is in Leo sign or the sun is in the Upapada sign, as we mentioned, this will not result in, you know, what Jamie has to say about the ascetic and a divorce, etc. Okay?
Yes.
Because sun is just not considered malefic in the sense that Mars, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu are.
So malefic influences can ruin marriage, can delay it, can fully block it if there is no benefic Rashi aspect or benefic in the Pada. If you know, what if the Pada falls in one of the malefic signs, say here in Capricorn, but there is no planet in Capricorn, and there is no aspect? Does it stay just malefic influence? There is no.
It's a malefic. When Upapada falls in a malefic sign, it is, yes, it is the first condition. Mm-hmm.
What if instead, because Capricorn is aspected by it's a cardinal sign, it's aspected by the fixed, which means that this is Cancer here.
For example, Taurus.
Yeah, where is Taurus? Here? Taurus? So if we have here a good planet, Venus, say, and it's aspecting Capricorn, because remember, fixed signs aspect the cardinal signs in those special sign aspects that we're using. So any planet in the fixed sign, which is Taurus or Scorpio or what is it? Or Leo will aspect Capricorn. Will it save? it can save.
Yes, yes, it can. It is a benefic aspecting.
Okay.
So it's the benefics aspecting the malefic rashis or signs. Even if there's malefics in there, depends on the dignity and it depends on the other conditions too. But it could make the difference for sure.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Mhm.
So can you?
So that's already a lot, right?
Yeah.
We're almost there. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Now, benefics in the Upapada are more important than malefics aspecting, right? I mentioned this.
Yeah.
So, and the benefics are going to be the saving grace and the conjunctions also, of course. Now, when there's a debilitated planet in the Upapada, then that is not a good thing, according to Jamini. It's not a good thing for marriage, obviously.
Say your Upapada falls here, that'll be Virgo. Nothing is debilitated in.
When there's a planet in there, right?
No, so if it's in Virgo, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if your Upapada falls here and Mercury is here in Pisces, where it's debilitated, that's not good.
No, that's not. Even if it's a benefic indeed, then it's not good for marriage at all. It can.
Debilitated means in its signs of fall, and for Mercury that's Pisces, for the Sun it's Libra, for Venus is Virgo, for Jupiter is Capricorn, for the Moon is Scorpio.
The first 5 degrees.
First 5 degrees of Scorpio. Yeah, so if you happen to have one of those planets in the Upapada, even if they're benefics, they can still ruin it.
Yeah, debilitated planets in the Upapadas, or even aspecting debilitated planets. Aspecting is not advisable. I mean, it's not a good condition at all. It will tend to, lessen the chances for marriage.
Okay, what is the opposite? We have a malefic, Mars, but say it's in Capricorn, it's exalted, or Saturn in Libra, and it's Rashi aspecting or in the Upapada.
Very good, very good.
Even if they're malefic.
Even if they're malefic, very good. Exalted planets are proud planets. It's Garvita Avashta, right? So it's always a good thing, no matter it's a malefic or... Now, if it's a benefic, it's going to be more benefic, right? It's going to be more gentle anyway. So in that sense, no, but it's exalted and it's aspecting, or if the Upapada, if there's an exalted planet in the Upapada, that's great. And Jamie says,
if it's malefic, this is exception, guys. Even if it's Saturn or Mars or Mercury, malefic, but if it's in its sign of exaltation, this is great.
This is great, right? Then Jamie says many wives, fruitful relationships. Okay, so
well, how is that good? I mean, many wives, it means many divorces and remarriages.
Well, it means, fruitful relationships with, let's say. I think the ancient times were also more polyamorous or something. So in that context, you have to put it in the context. But no, it's going to be great for marriage life. I have a great example for this. We can maybe later on pull up some charts and practice and have a great example.
Yes, I like. So I just want to repeat. Malefic planets aspecting in the Upapada, the marriage sign, which are, as we said, Rahu, Ketu, they don't have dignity. They can't have exalted dignity or something. Can they? No.
No, I wouldn't consider this here at all. I know, Taurus and Scorpio are considered their exaltation signs, but no, I wouldn't apply this here.
So if you happen to have Rahu, Ketu aspecting, or in the Upapada, or Saturn and Mars, or waning moon becoming small, these are the malefic influences. But if any of those, except Rahu and Ketu, are exalted, then what about if they're in their own sign? So Saturn in Capricorn or in Aquarius. It's less malefic again, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. It's going to be less challenge. It's going to be not a bad situation if there's a good dignity. Dignity is always important.
So mostly, obviously, look at the dignity of the planet that is aspecting the Upapada. That's
yes. When it's expecting from its own sign, it is malefic, and it can be a separating influence, and it can ruin things. But you have to look at the overall picture. So you have to look at all the charts and then determine how strong the malefic and benefic influences are.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's like it's astrology. It's not that clean cut, right? The rules are very clear here in this technique. We make it as clear as possible. There's already a lot of nuance, right? But if you look at charts, after a while, you start to understand and you start to feel how things will play out. It depends on the dignity of the planets, also the strength of the planets. You look at it from the natal chart, from the Saptamsha chart, the D60 chart. You analyze it from the D9 chart. Also, you have to look at the whole picture. It's just one technique. This is one thing we can use to get an idea of what is happening, right? But it's not, it's not that clean cut always in astrology. Ken Rao says when a technique works 60% of the time, it's well worth using. And you will find that most techniques give, really good techniques give like 60, 70, maybe 80%.
Nothing is ever always written in stone, or at least we're not advanced enough to have those techniques given to us.
Yes, and many people we need to use our intuition, right? And so in the end, it's intuition that makes the great readings. And but it's good for developing astrology in a scientific way, like Ernst does and Ken Rao has done and still does. So, but yes. Also, I want to mention one thing. When the Upapada falls in Gemini, and there's absolutely no malefic aspect to Gemini, then Gemini says it gives a rich spouse.
Damn.
Yeah. So, but there cannot be malefic influence to it. That's one exception, because we were talking about Mercury becoming malefic, right? But in Gemini sign for Gemini, when the Upapada falls there, it plays out. I also have an example for this. I've seen it play out twice.
Wow, to get a husband.
It's great.
Wonderful. And would it describe the Upapada the partner, or no? It's more like the quality of the marriage rather than describing the partner.
Yeah, for the spouse itself, we look at the Lord of the Upapada. Right? If the Lord of the Upapada is exalted or in Mula Trikona sign, then it indicates.
Mula Trikona means the sign it owns. Well, high dignity.
It's just below exalted dignity and above own house, let's say. Right? And so when the Upapada Lord is exalted or in great dignity, let's say, even if it's a great friend sign or friend sign, then that indicates the spouse could be, from a, good background. How do you say, like good financial life and great status and this kind of thing. So, and this seems to play out also pretty nicely.
I have someone in mind whose Upapada is in Pisces and Jupiter is there. So the Lord of the Upapada is in its own sign. I don't know if it's Mula Trikona, but his two wives were beautiful and very kind of above even the status of the person.
It was above, right? Exactly. It can be above the status. Yes, it's very interesting. Now the same thing for, when there's bad dignity, like debilitated planets or enemies sign, great enemies sign, then it tends to play a little differently. So
would it give like a lesser moral character of the spouse, or would it give just more like on the material level that they come from a poorer background? Or
yes, something like that. It can be a completely different cultural background even, because that's considered like in the ancient times or the traditional Indian culture, it's not considered a positive thing. So it could mean that too.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it could mean that too. So, but it could mean a lower financial status and social caste system is seen from this, you know. So yeah, you can play with that.
But it's not going to give you like a horrible person spouse. It's not going to describe someone who lies to you, who cheats, who little puppies or something.
No, if there's thing is, if there's a benefic influencing, like again Rashi aspecting the Upapada Lord, then Jamini says it's very it indicates the spouse will be beautiful and handsome and of, you know, good qualities and this kind of thing. There needs to be benefic aspect to the Upapada Lord via Rashi aspect. Yeah.
Guys, we're using very different aspects here, not like trines and oppositions. Only the mutable signs aspect each other, the fixed aspect the cardinals, and the cardinals, anything in one of the cardinal signs will aspect anything in one of the fixed signs if they're not next to each other, and the other way around. So very simple technique, you just have to learn to use it.
Yes. Then there's also it's interesting. There's a divorce yoga too, right? I think that's the last thing we will say about this. But if Rahu and Saturn aspecting the Upapada Lord, then you know, it tends to play out. It's not only in the Rashi chart. I hope people really clearly understand this.
In the birth chart.
In the 3 charts, but then, you know, it's it could indicate divorce, and it is the person's horse who has the combination that is most likely to file for divorce.
So Rahu and Saturn, Rashi aspecting both the Upapada Lord leads to divorce. Usually the person who has this in the horoscope starts the divorce.
And then it's more likely, we should say, it's more likely then that divorce could happen. Now, you know, it's not because Rahu and Saturn are aspecting Upapada Lord that it's necessarily going to happen, because we need to look at the whole picture here. People should really understand this very clearly. But the potential increases, right, for filing divorce yourself. Most of the time it plays out like this. I've seen it play out many times, actually. And even in the Sashyamsha, when the birth time is rectified, and it's absolutely dead on, right? So you need to work a lot on those horoscopes to get an accurate birth time. And people get divorced, and in some way it's indicated. I've seen it play out quite a few times. So yeah, it's pretty accurate, I think. It's not 100% at all, but it'll give you
anything above 60%. We
yes,
we consider a successful technique in astrology.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
So can you give us some examples you have prepared?
Sure. So I'm just going to share screen here. Can you see this chart?
Yeah. This is southern Indian style, or what is it?
This is South Indian style, but it's very easy, right? This is here, the ascendant is here, right? 2nd house, 3rd house, 4th house, 5th house, 6th, 7th.
Yeah, people can use circular charts, square, whatever they want. They always, you know, they just look different, but anyway.
It's clockwise direction here. So this is the 1st house. The ascendant is shown by this 2 lines here, right? And Aries is always here. Taurus is always here. It's very simple to read.
Direction than I know usually, isn't it?
Excuse me?
The signs are going in the opposite direction than they usually are showed in the other.
Then they usually, yes. Now this is it's a Rashi chart, so this is actually great to you know, look at Rashi aspects, right? It's how the planets move through the zodiac. Okay, so is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, I can also show it. I can't share my screen though, but I can show it how it's going to look on a circular chart if people are more used to circular charts.
Okay, so this is, we see here, we're going to calculate the Upapada, right? So here we see the 10th cusp. The 10th cusp is ruled by Venus. This is Libra, right? And we see Venus is in the 8 from Libra. So we're going to count 8 places from Venus. So this is 7, 8, and then 7, 8. So the Upapada is going to fall in Sagittarius. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So here we see that the Upapada is conjunct the ascendant, right? And when the pada falls with the ascendant, then it's like fortifying that path, right? So this person is going to be fixed on marriage. Marriage life is going to be important for them.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's part of their path in life, the ascendant.
Yes. You know, and so Sagittarius sign here we see is a benefic sign, right?
Yeah.
It's ruled by Jupiter. Now we see that there is some aspects to it here. The corners aspect each other. So it's very simple to see, right? So we have Jupiter aspecting here. Also we have Rahu aspecting here, and Saturn is aspecting, and Ketu, okay?
Because the mutable signs like Sagittarius are affected by anything in other mutable signs, and Saturn and Ketu in Virgo, mutable sign, and Rahu and Jupiter in Pisces, mutable sign.
Mm-hmm. So it's a benefic sign. It, you know, the malefic or cruel aspects won't determine this, right? They need to be in the sign, right? And to make it really malefic. So in this case, looks good, right, from the natal chart?
Well, we have 3 malefics, Rahu, Ketu, and Saturn, and 1 benefic, Jupiter.
That's true, but there's no. That's true, but it is the benefic aspect here, and a Jupiter from his own sign, right, Pisces, that is aspecting Sagittarius. So it's not going to be that much of a problem, in fact, because
but we have the Lord of the Upapada aspected by Rahu and Saturn, because Jupiter becomes the Lord of the Upapada.
Yes, so it is going to indicate some problems, obviously, right? And but it's not going to determine that this person will be an ascetic, or it will not deny marriage in this sense.
We have 1 strong benefic in its own sign aspecting the Upapada, and that's Jupiter. So it already allows for marriage.
And it's true what you say, there's 3 malefics aspecting as well. So we're gonna have to look further to come to a more you know, grounded conclusion, we can say. Okay, so as I mentioned, we need to look at this from the Saptamsha chart, which is a D7 chart, and we're going to use the same Upapada. And here we see that Mercury is in
the one that we calculated in the birth chart. We use the same sign.
Yes, we use the same sign for the D1 chart, the natal chart, and the Saptamsha chart. We're going to use the same Upapada sign.
Okay.
Okay, here we see that Mercury is there. Okay, Mercury here is with Mars and malefic, but it's not going to play out that malefic. Okay. Yes, it is, you know, it is in the sign. It is aspected again by Jupiter from its own sign, which is a very strong indication. And Jupiter is always a saving grace, right? Look at it that way. When Jupiter, and especially from its own sign and from great dignity, is aspecting, your chances go up, you know.
Even though there is another malefic against Saturn, is aspecting also in the 7th divisional chart of marriage, is also aspecting. But Jupiter saves the whole situation.
Jupiter saves the whole situation in this case. Now, for the D60 chart, we're going to have to calculate a new Upapada. So the 10th cusp here is Gemini. We see that Mercury falls in the 4th, right? So when the pada falls in the 4th or the 10th, it automatically goes to the 10th, right? To the 4th, excuse me. So we see that Mercury here is in its own sign, right?
Yeah.
It's not quite exalted, but it's near his exaltation. It's a very good dignity, right?
Yeah.
So this turns out this woman has been married for over 40 years. So,
and even despite we have malefic influences, one benefic saves everything.
Yes, and also, it's true that Mercury becomes malefic with an embodied malefic that is not the sun, but I see it play out more often than not that Mercury doesn't really act as a malefic. Truly, it's not going to determine a thing. So we have it here, aspected by Jupiter, and in the D60 chart is in its own sign, own house. So this turns out to be a marriage that had its ups and downs for sure, and many problems, of course, but the marriage survived through time. So that's one example I should give. Okay. Then I'll give some other examples. Now to make it clear. Okay, so I'm just gonna. Okay, here for this chart, we see that the 10th house cusp falls in Aries sign. Aries is ruled by Mars, all right, and Mars is in the 9th from Aries. So we're going to count 9 places: 7, opposite 8, 9, and we see that Rahu is in the Upapada, is it? This Leo sign becomes Upapada when Rahu is there. It's a malefic.
And again on the ascendant, so it means very important for those people.
Very important for this, yes, for him. Now there is exalted Saturn aspecting.
Okay. Because Rahu is in Leo, so Leo is aspected by the cardinal signs: Libra, Capricorn, Aries.
Yes. Aries, so like this: Libra, Capricorn, Aries. It's very simple to see it like that, right? The dual signs here aspect each other. And then here is a fixed sign, and here are the movable signs aspecting like this. Okay, so it doesn't really necessarily look promising from the natal chart, right? There's also debilitated sun aspecting. Not going to really take sun into consideration, but debilitation is never a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So we have to look further, and we see that in the Saptamsha chart. Check out this. Leo is the Upapada, is being aspected by exalted sun, exalted Mars, yes.
Oh wow, lots of exalted planet that aspected.
3 exalted planets aspecting.
Even though they're malefic, Saturn and Mars are malefic, but they're in their exaltation.
Exactly. Now, if we look at the D60 chart, the Shashamsa chart, so we calculate the pada from here, so Capricorn, the 10th house cusp. We see Saturn goes into the 5th, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? We count 5 places from there, and we arrive at Virgo sign, which is a benefic sign. It's aspected by Jupiter. It's also aspected by a waxing moon, and yes, there is Rahu and Mars and Ketu aspecting, but the aspects of the benefics are going to weigh more in this. So it turns out that this person has been married with his, what is it? First girlfriend, like one of his. They've been together since they were 16 or something, or 17 years old.
So we see here how malefics aspecting the Upapada, if they're exalted, they really actually work really well. It means probably you'd meet more than a fair share of difficulties in the relationship, but because the planet, the malefic, is exalted, you are able to overcome those difficulties, and you're able to work with them and stay despite of the difficulties.
Exactly. Now we're looking at this only from this technique, right? And so we also have to look, of course, the 7th house. Here is the 7th, and Lord is exalted, right? Here, for example, we can also look at the D9 chart and see what's going on there in the Navamsha. to give an idea about what's going on here. You know, the seventh lord, Saturn, is conjunct the first lord in the fifth house, so it looks good, right? And so we have to look at many things, but for this technique, it's you know, it's amazing how often it plays out quite accurately. Now you will get, in the beginning, it's kind of puzzling and you have to weigh things out, but after a while you get a sense for it. And
yeah, that's for astrologers basically who want to work with this. I mean, amateurs or people who are just learning astrology, maybe they need some time to start feeling how it works.
Sure. We can just share the information, and I think it's worthwhile. And for people who are just, you know, wanting to get a little deeper into it, it's a great technique to learn, and it works. So should we take another chart?
Yes, give us some horrible chart.
Horrible charts. We can look at Paramahansa Yogananda's chart.
Okay.
He wasn't married, right?
Oh, yeah.
I know that the family astrologer predicted that he was going to get married and he was going to have many wives, etc. So it's kind of interesting.
He was probably using a different Upapada from the 12th house.
Yes, probably. So here we have the 10th cusp is in Taurus.
Okay.
Venus is in the 8th here, right? Venus is in the 8th sound. This is opposite always, right? So Venus in the 8th from... That's like Venus in the 8th, you know, then 8 places from there, Cancer becomes the Upapada. And we see that
Moon is waning.
Moon is waning, so Cancer becomes a malefic sign, right? Yeah. And we see Rahu and Ketu aspecting.
Ah, two malefics only.
Doesn't look promising, right? And then if we look at
benefic helping, and it's a malefic sign and two malefics. Okay.
Yes. Here, but in the Saptamsha we see Jupiter exalted.
So we're looking at Cancer now in the 7th division.
Cancer here. Here we see that the benefic Jupiter is exalted. So that's why the astrologer probably said you're going to have many wives, right? So, and there's Mars aspecting and also Mercury here. So from the Saptamsha chart, it looks really good. Here we have also an exalted Venus, right? Now, if we look at this D60 chart, we see that the 10th cusp falls in Scorpio, and then Mars falls into 5th house, goes in the 5th, and then the 5th from there. Again, we have Cancer, which is a malefic sign in this case, right? And it's only aspected by a debilitated Moon, right? And Saturn. So it plays out that...
Stacking up against one good chart.
Excuse me?
We have two difficult padas from two charts against one positive one from the 7th divisional.
Yes, and we have to take into consideration that if the birth time is accurate, that the D60 chart is most likely going to determine the thing, right? And that is a difficult fact about kind of astrology, is that in order to make it as accurate as possible, we need accurate birth time, right? And so a lot of the times, because this chart here is so time sensitive, right? The cusps start changing even after 10-15 seconds, and the lagna changes, I think, on an average of 2 minutes or something. So that is, you know, the reason, also one of the reasons why astrology is, in order to become really accurate, is a tricky thing, because we need accurate birth time. Okay, but in this case, it's pretty clear that Paramahansa Yogananda doesn't or didn't get married.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Another one?
Yeah, last one. We can do last one. For those of you who are following, who can really understand, I can, but you need to have studied maybe that a bit more.
And then, okay. So here we have a person, the 10th house cusp falls in Aquarius. Saturn is in second place from Aquarius, so we count 1, 2. So Aries here, you can see it here also, becomes the Upapada. I'm using an older version of Kala here.
Okay. At least it writes directly what the Upapada is.
Yes, you can see it. And so here Aries is a malefic sign, right?
What aspects Aries? Aquarius, Scorpio,
Aquarius here,
and Leo. Nothing.
and Leo. Yes.
There are no planets helping.
No planets helping. Doesn't look promising from the Rashi chart or the natal chart, right?
Yes.
Then we look at the Saptamsha chart. We see Aries. We see no aspects either. Well, the sun is aspecting, but it's not really going to determine a thing.
Huh. Yeah. No aspect either. Okay.
Okay. So it's kind of, it's only a malefic Rashi here that the Upapada falls in. So it doesn't really look promising. Now, the 10th house cusp from Leo, we have, sun is, where is sun here? It's in the 12th, right? So here we have Mercury in its own sign in Gemini. You see? And it's a benefic, and in this case, it is a benefic. It is with Sun. It's not really going to make it malefic, and it's with Venus, another benefic. So Mercury is in very good position here, right? It's aspected by. Yeah. Sorry.
So the Upapada is in Gemini in the Sashtyamsha.
In the Sashtyamsha, yes, it is. This chart has also been worked at rectification-wise. Also, Jupiter from its own sign is aspecting. Venus is aspecting another benefic, and then also Rahu and Ketu. But the Shashamsa determines the thing here, and this person has been married twice.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Now, we were talking about the divorce yoga, right? That is the Upapada Lord being aspected by Rahu and Saturn. I'm not sure if it plays out in this horoscope. I don't think so. I thought it would.
No. Mars is in Virgo and is aspected by Rahu and by Saturn in Pisces, in Gemini.
Yep.
So a divorce there.
File for divorce. Yeah, twice.
Oh wow.
That's an interesting. This person is also homosexual. It's kind of interesting to see that the dual signs are very active here. And then the 8th Lord Saturn is also here at Rashi aspecting. It's also in a dual sign. The 7th Lord Mercury is in Cancer. And Rahu is also involved, right? So dual signs are involved. 7th Lord, Jupiter, dual signs. Aspected by 8th Lord here, Rashi aspected, and with Rahu. So it's kind of interesting to see it from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, guys, if people can learn that technique and see how many planets stack up against them and against them, and if you can't do it, just call Levi. He can do a horoscope for you and calculate your marriage potential. I'll put the link to his services, and as you can see, he's very. You can stop sharing it now.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna.
But he's very knowledgeable, and he has quite a great experience with those techniques, ancient techniques that we're just discovering in the last few, in the last few decades, basically, that are resurfacing after thousands of years that were hidden from us. They were coded on purpose, so this knowledge does not get to everyone. Because we went into the Kala Yuga, the Dark Age, where knowledge had to be coded, had to be hidden, because it can go in the wrong hands and be used for wrong as well. And once we come out of the Kala Yuga, which we're starting to, this knowledge is coming to the surface. We can decode it again. And Levi is one of those lucky to have access to this knowledge and to be able to work with you guys and to teach you or to show you, to direct you. But wow, thank you. That's Thank you for sharing with us. That's a huge.
You're welcome. It's a lot to take in. For me, it was definitely too, and I thought maybe it would would have been a good idea to explain it, the whole thing, and people can study it and review the.
Yeah, I mean, they should take that video and keep it for years, because this technique is a very special one.
It's a special one. It works well, and you'll have an idea about what you can expect, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you. And by the way, Levi is preparing now a series of videos on the soul planet that will come in a few days, I suppose, maybe a week or something, couple of weeks. And he's talking about finding your soul planet, which is called the Swamsha, which is the sign of the, basically describes possibility for career, your life, isn't it? Overall, the soul destiny.
Yes, it is. It is the planet that the whole Jamini analysis is based on. It is the Atmakaraka, and it's extremely interesting. And we're going to look at this, its placement in the Navamsha, and it indicates the core challenge of a person's, path, we could say. Yeah. From the Jamini angle, I think it's
the core challenge. So basically, the position of your soul planet in the 9 divisional chart will show your core challenges.
Yes, and Jamini has some sutras on it. Ernst translated them and gives some interpretation, and they work just.
So Levi is preparing for each sign what it means. And this is very easy. This is very easy to find. It's nothing like what we've been showing you here. You find the planet with the highest degree in your horoscope, and you check the sign it is in the 9 divisional chart, basically. But Levi explains in the video, very easy, and this works like crazy. Because, for example, my soul planet is in Scorpio in the 9 divisional chart. And what it said there, word for word, is what my life has been. For the
you're Scorpio Swamsha?
I have a Scorpio Swamsha. Yeah. And they even say that the child is not breastfed as a little one if it falls in Scorpio, which was so true. My mom could not breastfeed me. And then they can even develop addictions and stuff later in life through Scorpio. And it's so interesting how powerfully it plays out. Something you have to check out, guys. We will release them in a few when Levi is ready. But I think it's amazing information that it will give so much depth. Yeah. And I always wondered why, like, oh, my signs are Aries, and they're like, why were those dark themes in my life? Why were those obsessive, dark, intense themes happening throughout my life? And when you find out your soul planet in the D9, in the Swamsha, as we call it, I discovered so much Scorpio energy there that that's the reason. You can't just see from the birth chart. So you have such in-depth understanding of the biggest challenge in your path.
And I think if you're studying or if you're into Western astrology, people we tend to get stuck on certain concepts, right, and ideas about what the chart is, what the planets in the signs mean, how I am and how I act, right? But if you examine or if you incorporate the whole Jamini angle to it, which is really simple, right? It's not a hard thing to do. Then you will get so much more insight and meaning about your own soul's path and your own personality, and you go like, wow, it can be very surprising or can be rather shocking too, but it's going to open the brain. And
no, you're not going to define yourself, oh, I'm born in June, I'm a Gemini. You see such layers, they're so much more different.
Yeah, so for people who really want to explore a little deeper, it's definitely worthwhile. And so that's also one of the reasons we do the videos here about the Jamini.
Yeah, guys, and this information costs costs money to learn this, and Levi's giving it to you for free. I know it's complicated, but I mean, people would pay big money for this kind of really esoteric information on astrology, really high, simple but high-level astrology techniques. So give him a round of applause. Thank you, Levi.
No, but I think it's important to share all the things you have, you know. I think in the end, to do an astrology reading, when it's a really good astrology reading, really comes from intuition, right? It's not about, I don't really care so much about whether people get married or not, you know what I mean? It is important, and I'll analyze it for people, and I think it's fun. But in the end, it's not really about that. That's my perspective of it. But it's true what you said, that it's valuable information, and people like Ernst and Ken Rowe have invested their whole life in researching this information and decoding the sutras. And you know, Ernst spent sometimes 2 years on one sutra.
So I think this is one line, guys. One line,
yeah,
of sentence that he has to decode, that is in transcript, that is kind of coded message.
exactly. So it needs to come out there, and yeah. So let's do that.
Sharing knowledge with us, guys. If you want a reading with Levi, I'll send you a link. You know where to find him. As you can see, he's an amazing astrologer. You can almost see a halo around his head. I want to embarrass you.
No, it's not.
For joining us. And guys, I'm looking forward so much to this series of Levi about the challenges of your soul, which is about your soul planet. And it's much easier technique, so don't worry. And it's going to be about the 12 signs exactly. So yeah, thank you so much, and hope to see you soon again with new mind-torturing techniques. Mind-blowing. Okay.
Yes. Looking forward. Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.